Saturday, March 6th at 12:32 p.m.
Hi, Michael. This is Mom. I'm calling Michael to tell you that I just heard on the radio that Michael Stanley passed away today. That he was 73, I think they said. He had cancer.
End of message.
When I was a little kid growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, the shores of Lake Erie, the North Coast, there was a singer-songwriter from my city, my hometown, that had become as close to famous as any other musician in that city had ever come. His name was Michael Stanley. His real name was Michael Stanley Gee, G-E-E. But after he started to become a rock star, he dropped the Gee and was known only as Michael Stanley. And Michael Stanley died about 2 weeks ago. And this was a big deal in my hometown. And it was really sweet and kind of my mother to remember me and to call me and to let me know that Michael Stanley had died. He's kind of like, sweet to be remembered that way by my mom because, I am like the family music guy, So she reached out and kind of let me know, and I felt really bad. I felt really bad. Just sitting here right now, thinking about it. I got my cup of coffee here, kind of reflecting on the days of yore, the days of yesteryear, and my childhood growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, and just kind of remembering, thinking how much of an icon Michael Stanley had become to me when I was just a little kid, I'm going to get a sip of my coffee here really quick before I continue, so hang on. Okay. So, growing up in Cleveland, Ohio, Michael Stanley and the Michael Stanley Band were everywhere in my life. They were on television, they were on MTV, they were on the record player, they were on t-shirts, they were the first concert for pretty much everybody that I knew, everybody in my sphere, when I was maybe, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that age range. I mean, Michael Stanley and the Michael Stanley Band had become fixtures in Cleveland city life, and it was actually kind of an amazing story, really, and one that kind of provokes a lot of thought, especially now, many years later, looking back, reflecting a little bit, and kind of having had some experiences myself. I kind of see the Michael Stanley Band and that whole thing through a different lens. But I guess probably before I continue talking about this, I should give you some of the basic facts about Michael Stanley to kind of familiarize you with him a little bit. And I went on to Wikipedia, and he has a page, of course, and I kind of printed out, the information and skimmed through it. And I thought that I would share with you a couple of things that will probably help to acquaint you with the Michael Stanley Band. So I guess we could start by... I already told you that he changed his name, but we'll just kind of go with this here. His birth name, Michael Stanley Gee. He was born March 25th, 1948 in Cleveland, Ohio, but actually he was born in a city called Rocky River, which was literally one town over from where I grew up and where I was born. Okay, so he died March 5th, 2021, at the age of 72. So my mom was wrong. She thought it was 73. He was actually a year younger, 72. Sorry, Mom, but thanks for the call. He was a singer-songwriter, and after the Michael Stanley band broke up, because that eventually happened, he had a career on Cleveland radio as a disc jockey for many, many, many years on a station called WNCX. And I think he also worked for another station called WMMS. And actually, WMMS was very important, to me when I first set out on this whole rock and roll songwriting thing. WMMS was really supportive of me when I was very young. Just thought I would mention that. But he also worked there. I never met him. I never met Michael Stanley. But I did meet one of his band members once, and I'll get into that in a little while. But he was a guitarist and he was a singer. And he was in a group before the Michael Stanley band called Silk. And then he just started to perform, acoustic songs, like folk songs, kind of like a Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan kind of thing for a while. And then eventually formed the Michael Stanley Band, which was a fully electric, pop rock kind of project. It's actually very interesting, really, the story of Michael Stanley, because his group, his band, him, really, had gotten so close to superstardom. I mean, they had all the ingredients, everything that they needed to go all the way. And some would argue that they actually did go all the way, but I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Michael Stanley Band? Well, I suppose if you lived anywhere but Northeast Ohio or, certain key markets throughout the United States, you probably have never heard of them before. But, they had so many amazing developments or amazing achievements as a band. Like, just to name a few, let's see. Here in this Wikipedia page, they're talking about how the Michael Stanley Band had set several attendance records at the Cleveland area venues. Record-setting numbers. So there was a place near where I lived. It was south of where I lived, maybe about 50 miles south of where I actually lived. It was called the Richfield Coliseum, and it was where the Cleveland Cavaliers would play. It was, like if U2 or the Rolling Stones or, bigger groups like The Cure or bands like that, when they came to Northeast Ohio, especially if it was in the wintertime, they would play at the Richfield Coliseum. So that should give you an idea of exactly how big this local, quote-unquote, local band had gotten. They were playing the Richfield Coliseum, and not only were they playing there, but they were setting attendance records at this place. So that should give you kind of an idea of what we're talking about here, like the scope and the scale of how big the Michael Stanley Band had gotten in my hometown. That record that they set at the Richfield Coliseum was 20,320 people at one concert for a local band, and a record 40,529 for two Coliseum concerts on December 31st, 1981 and January 1st, 1982. Let's see what it says here. The band's greatest achievement was a total attendance of 70... Okay, get this. Listen to this. A total attendance of 74,404 people during a 4-night stand at a place near where I grew up, just south of, where I grew up, called the Blossom Music Center, which was like an amphitheater, kind of like similar to Red Rocks in Colorado, or like an open air venue where there was a pavilion, and then like outside of the pavilion there were lawn seats. They did 4 nights in a row there. Okay, 4 nights sold out at Blossom Music Center. 74,404 people attended in total. That was August 25th, 26th, the 30th, and the 31st of 1982. So think about that. That's absolutely enormous. They had a song, they had actually a couple that had broken into Billboard's Top 100. They had a song called He Can't Love You. And that song was written by the keyboardist and the other singer in the Michael Stanley Band, because they had 2 main singers, Michael Stanley and Kevin Rowley. And Kevin Rowley wrote their biggest hit, He Can't Love You. And it was in the top 40, actually. It reached number 33 on Billboard charts. And they had another song called In the Heartland from an album called North Coast. That song went to number 6 on Billboard Top 40. Okay. And the video, they had a video they had shot for the song He Can't Love You, the earlier song I was talking about that had reached number 33. They made a video for it, and that video was the 47th video ever played on MTV. Isn't that cool? Like, a band from my hometown had actually made it onto MTV. Way in the beginning, man. Way in the beginning. And, actually, they had one more song. The Michael Stanley Band had one more song. It was called My Town, which was like a song about Cleveland, the steel town, and growing up like where I grew up. Much like Bruce Springsteen did with, New Jersey. He sang about the experience of growing up in New Jersey. And there's a lot of things with the Michael Stanley Band, probably much like Bruce Springsteen, where if you're from, New Jersey, the references when, Springsteen is singing about something, because you're from there, the references, right? Well, Michael Stanley was, for me and everybody else I knew, he was that for my city. And actually, it's interesting too, speaking of Bruce Springsteen, that song He Can't Love You, the one that charted, the saxophone in that song, and I'm sure when you hear it you'll know, the saxophone on that track is being played by Clarence Clemens from the E Street Band. So, like I said, there are so many achievements, so many things the Michael Stanley Band had done. There's like a certain level of success they had risen to, but for some reason, they just never really broke nationwide or internationally. Something just didn't click. Maybe it was, the themes of the songs or something, or maybe it was their sound or something, or maybe they had falling out with, some kind of record executive or something. But for one reason or another, despite the Billboard charts, despite the touring, despite the success and the record-breaking attendance at concerts, despite Clarence Clemens even, playing on one of their albums, and all these things that this group had achieved, none of it really mattered, when it came to national or international success. It didn't really guarantee any of that. What a strange lesson to learn growing up, as a young and up and coming musician, that sometimes it doesn't matter how many opportunities you get. Sometimes, there's no real guarantee that just because you write good songs and you have successes and you get very, very close to the top. I mean, when Michael Stanley died, get this, okay, check this out. When Michael Stanley died, Paul Stanley from Kiss, tweeted about it. Okay, I mean, this guy was huge. I mean, they had an album that they had released called Cabin Fever, and it was produced by none other than Mutt Lange. And if you know anything about music and the industry and production, I mean, Mutt Lange is about as big as you can get. I mean, he's produced, AC/DC, Def Leppard, Shania Twain, just so many great, groundbreaking, internationally successful groups, and he started with the Michael Stanley Band, believe it or not, and that's a fact. I didn't know that until I read the wiki page, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how far the Michael Stanley Band got, and they just never popped. They never broke nationally or internationally. Even though they were on the show, The American Bandstand, even. Do you remember that show back in the day? With Dick Clark, and he would have the groups that were the most popular at the time, perform live in the studio, and the kids would dance and they would rate the music and all that kind of stuff. Well, the Michael Stanley Band actually made it onto American Bandstand, and even that didn't guarantee any real kind of major success or anything. It boggles the mind, really, that a group could be that successful, that connected, and doing whatever they had to do to get to where they were. Even setting attendance records at a Coliseum, and even that didn't guarantee national or international success. But the lesson learned here is that it was enough to solidify the Michael Stanley Band as like heroes of my hometown. And there's something to be said for that, it's kind of cool in a way. It's almost like it's a secret, the secret, like knowledge, of this music or whatever. Like, you have to be from where I'm from to know about this. And that's really very much how it is, And it is kind of funny too, because when I started to play the club circuit in Cleveland, I was probably about 19 or 20 years old. By that time, a lot of the musicians that I was coming up with were so, disillusioned with the Michael Stanley Band, and just, they're just so lame. They're so homogenized, and, because, the songs and the lyrics and things, the themes that the Michael Stanley Band sang about were innocent. They were clean and good, and they weren't confrontational or in any way. So if you think about it, really, it was a wise thing to do, because, anytime you drop like a F-bomb or a swear word, or, the subject matter starts to kind of go south a little bit, the song that you're doing, you limit your audience, right? So they were smart, I guess, in the sense that, they didn't limit their audience that way. You could be an 8-year-old kid, a 10-year-old kid, and it was okay to listen to that music. And especially, back in the day when, you had parents that were monitoring what children were listening to and stuff like that. It was safe music. And, for that reason, and probably for many others, the Michael Stanley Band was, for many of the people that I grew up with and people around me, it was like their first concert experience, because it was okay. The parents would let you go to the Michael Stanley Band concert, because there wasn't going to be a lot of trouble, and it wasn't going to be a bad influence. The music was, relatively easy, pop music, very well crafted, very well performed and recorded songs, but the subject matter was clean and safe. And I suppose, now that I'm saying that, sitting here saying it, I'm thinking about it, and it's like, I kind of, I would say I kind of adopted that idea. Maybe it was from the Michael Stanley Band, or maybe I just came up with it on my own, but I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But, I never swear. You'll never hear me cuss or swear in one of my songs. It just won't ever happen. And anytime I've been in a band where they would swear, like in the song, I would demand that they would get rid of the swear word. Not only is it, not appropriate, okay, but it, like I said, it limits your audience, right? So maybe that's where I got that from. I mean, as I'm listening to this music, I'm going back, and listening to these songs. And I did this probably about 3 years ago, actually. I had a phase, I had met somebody on Facebook who, for one reason or another, we had gotten in a conversation about the Michael Stanley Band and my friend Rob, and he knew who they were, and he was a fan of them, even though he lived in San Francisco, right? He grew up in the Midwest, and he knew the Michael Stanley Band, and he was still a fan. And him and I got into this conversation about it, this cultural thing, this cultural phenomena from Northeast Ohio called the Michael Stanley Band. And, so I started to go back and comb through some of those albums that I remember, playing in my household, back in the day when my brothers and sisters, my older brothers and sisters would, buy the latest Michael Stanley album, and they'd put it on the record player. Remember those? And it was just, and they would play the whole album. Like my brothers and sisters and cousins and friends and everybody, like in that time period, with that experience of vinyl and records and things, album covers, remember those? They were so great. But people didn't usually skip around too much, track to track. A lot of the time, at least from my memory, you'd put the needle down on the vinyl and you'd start at the beginning and you'd play, the whole album. And you would kind of become acquainted with the whole albums. And that's how it was for me growing up. I mean, it's so funny because you can play me a Michael Stanley album, from that time period. And when the first song is ending, I know what the next song is just because I can remember the sound. I don't even have to look at the track list. I can remember what song is coming next. I listen to these albums that much. It's kind of amazing to think about now because, I almost never listen to an album from beginning to end anymore. I don't know about you. Maybe that's the case, but for me, that's definitely the case, Isn't that weird? I think it's weird to think about that. Why is that we stopped listening to albums all the way through? I mean, is it really because of the MP3 or the digital format or CD format? Like, why did we stop putting an album on from the beginning and just playing it all the way through rather than just skipping to the songs we like? There's some food for thought. But, so here I am now, in the year, 2021. Michael Stanley has just recently passed away. And, really, when I think about it, it's kind of like a part of my childhood has passed away too. It's a little bit sad, or sadder, I guess, in that way for me personally. I kind of feel much like when Eddie Van Halen died or Neil Peart died from Rush. These people, for me, they're very important people for me growing up. I was a young kid. I knew I was going to be making music one way or another. How that was going to happen, I didn't know. But a lot of these artists that I just talked about, they were a big part of my life, really, not just, what I like or my tastes or something. It was like I said, especially with Michael Stanley. I mean, growing up where I did, everybody I knew liked that band, and it was kind of cool because later on I played drums in a group that had signed a contract with a PR firm. They were going to handle our press and all that kind of stuff. And, it was kind of a big deal, I guess. We thought we were kind of, pretty cool, getting some kind of contract, signing an official contract with a company, a big, powerful company. And it was kind of cool because the artist management for that particular company was none other than Kevin Raleigh, the other lead singer and songwriter and keyboard player from the Michael Stanley Band. He was assigned to my band and to help us along, and kind of like the liaison between this PR firm and my band, right? And he would come down to our practice space and we would talk about stuff, whatever, business stuff. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how cool that was. Like, I can't wait to tell my sister, because my sister to this day is like a huge Michael Stanley Band fan. In fact, her wedding song was his song Spanish Nights. Her and her husband, who've been married for like ever now, like 40 years or something, 35, 40 years, something like that, 30 years, 40 years. Their wedding song was Spanish Nights by the Michael Stanley Band. So like to this day, my sister is still a huge fan. And, when I was working with Kevin Raleigh, I was just like, I just can't wait to tell her, she's gonna think this is so cool. Like, to me, like even though my friends were so like, the Michael Stanley Band, whatever, they're so lame, they're so naff, I can't even believe you're talking about them. And Kevin Raleigh's working with us, big deal, the guy from Michael Stanley, right? That's how they were. And I was like, kind of like quietly, silently to myself going, this is pretty cool, actually. I'm talking to Kevin Raleigh from the Michael Stanley Band, I swear to you, I wasn't starstruck or anything. It was just like, this is so cool. Like, I'm moving up, right? Like, I'm going to make it, one of those things. You get a few of those along the way. If you're an up-and-coming musician or something, you get a few of those along the way. These moments of cool, these access to someone or something that you can only get if you're in a band, And that was one of them for me. A really kind of funny and cool memory, really. Oh, man, I can just talk and talk and talk, can't I? I'm going to get a sip of my coffee. Hang on. Oh, man. Yeah, so I'm sitting here in my studio just kind of, reminiscing a little bit, thinking about my childhood. And, it is kind of cool, I guess, or sad or whatever, that, when somebody like Michael Stanley passes away, dies, a part of our life, a part of our memory and our childhood or whatever, that dies with him, But what's interesting is, after he died, his numbers as far as social media and streaming and downloads and record sales and merchandise, it went through the roof, man. It went through the roof, that posthumous selling of records, which is kind of cool, because what that means ultimately is that, when you think about it anyway, even though the man is gone, he is no longer here, his music lives on, it's immortal, and, forever and ever, somewhere on planet Earth, somebody somewhere forever will be listening to the Michael Stanley Band for the first time, discovering it, or just listening to it again, and I'm one of them. Some great songs. In fact, I wanted to make a point of mentioning the songs that I like the most. And you got to bear in mind too that I was a little kid, so I wasn't like really, into digging into groups and stuff yet. I was still too young, but these are the songs that stood out to me. Okay. He had a song called Why Should Love Be This Way? And it came out like in 1978. So I was like 7 years old when that song came out. But it was a great song. In fact, Michael Stanley's singing style, okay, was a bit like what they refer to as yarling, you know, when a singer sings like off the roof of their mouth, you know, kind of like that guy from Creed or, Lifehouse, when they sing from the roof of their mouth like this. They're meant for changing, yearning for truth. Well, Michael Stanley kind of was the first yarler, you know, before Eddie Vedder or, before Creed, there was the Michael Stanley Band. And he kind of had that sound. Baritone voice, though, I think. So just a very rich vocal and very original singing style. You know, at the time, I mean, he was the only person that sounded like that. And just a really guttural, earthy, rich voice. And you'll be able to tell when you listen to these songs, if you take the time to listen to this music I'm talking about now. And I'll leave the links down below so you can check it out. But yeah, he had this song, Why Should Love Be This Way? A fantastic song. It'll blow your mind. It's so well done. And he had another song that was kind of a hit called Baby If You Want to Dance. It went something like, Baby, if you want to dance, you've got to pay the band. It was that kind of music, celebratory, kind of fun, Friday night rock out kind of music, right? He Can't Love You, of course, which is the one that made it onto MTV. It's a big song for them. They have another song called Lover, and it's probably my favorite Michael Stanley Band song, and it has a really famous line in there where he says, thank God for the man who put the white lines on the highway. That became like a big, like a big deal at his concerts. Like the crowd would sing that line, in that song Lover. And it was kind of funny one time. I was in a band, the same band that had signed with that PR firm, right? And we were on our way home from a show in Youngstown back to Cleveland, and which is ironic because that song Lover was written on the way home from Youngstown back to Cleveland by Michael Stanley. And it was one of those, Cleveland snowstorms, right? And he said that, the snow was so bad on the turnpike coming home that, you could barely see. And thank God there was somebody who put the white lines on the highway. I remember having this conversation, or this argument really, with the bass player in the band I was in about what that line actually meant. He was swearing up and down that it was a drug reference, cocaine, thank God for the man who put the cocaine on the road for musicians, that kind of thing. And I was arguing him down, no, the Michael Stanley Band did not sing about drugs, okay? They didn't do that. They were wholesome, clean, good, innocent songs, just regular songs with no controversy, no drugs, no, you're wrong, okay? I remember specifically having that argument. I laugh about it now, with a sense of nostalgia, I do. But okay, so yeah, he had one more song that I can remember that I really liked a lot. And like I said, I'll leave the links for all this music down below so you guys can check it out. He had a song called My Town, and it was about, Cleveland, and he was singing directly to the people of the city. And, it was like an anthem, for the city of Cleveland. It still is, it still is. And probably even more so now that he passed away, And what's cool? Check this out. They named a street in Cleveland after Michael Stanley. Can you believe that? They actually named a street in the city after this guy, you know? I mean, because he had not only contributed, music and songs and concerts and memories, through the Michael Stanley Band, but after he quit the band, or after the band broke up, Michael Stanley had a career as a disc jockey, okay, like I mentioned, on WNCX, and I think for WMMS for a while. And he was also on a show, a local TV show called PM Magazine. That was the name of the show, and he hosted it for a long time. And he did so well. When I think about it now, I look back on it, it wasn't a big deal that, Michael Stanley was on TV, because by that time I was like so familiar with him, almost overexposed to Michael Stanley. I'd seen him and heard him everywhere. But when I look back on it now, he really did do a great job. I mean, as far as the transition from being a front man in a famous rock band, or a pseudo semi-famous rock band, to being the host of a TV show. Yeah, he actually did pretty well. And you can actually go back, which is one of the greatest things about YouTube, is you can actually go back and watch footage of him on PM Magazine from back in the day. And you can go back and check this stuff out. It's so cool. It's so cool. But I'm going to jump off here pretty soon. I think I've talked about Michael Stanley Band enough to, wrap this up. But I do want to say this, and I've thought about this, and I'm going to say something that may sound a little bit corny, okay, a little bit cheesy, but I got to assure you, okay, that I mean it. And it's really something that I seriously believe. Okay, that I love the Michael Stanley Band, not only because the songs are great, okay, but because in a lot of ways, really, without them, like, there would be no me, there would be no pipe choir or anything like that. And I really, the more I listen to these older cuts from these records from back in the 70s and 80s, I realize how much impact this group had on me, and how much of, what they did lives through what I do. And what's even kind of cooler is, much like the Michael Stanley Band, okay, in my own small way, so I was nowhere near ever as big as they were, okay? As small as they were, I never got that big. But no matter how many opportunities I had, or how much experience I had or didn't have, or opportunities I was denied for one reason or another, it didn't matter. Like, I was going to be me, I was going to do what I did, and he was going to do what he did. And people are going to be listening to both his and my music long after we're gone. It's just that way. It's the transcendental, aspect of this thing we do called music, It'll outlive me even, and it didn't matter that I didn't become famous. It doesn't matter. You don't have to become famous and wealthy in order for the music that you make to touch people, to touch their lives, to reach into their lives and become part of their lives. You don't have to become famous, and you don't have to become wealthy in order for that to happen. So think about that, folks. And, if you get the chance, check out the links I'll leave you below, and maybe, Google Michael Stanley Band and, read a little bit and learn a little bit. And you will probably find a song they've done that you actually really like. I mean, they really had a lot of great material, a lot of great songs, great songwriting, that will live on forever, not just in my house and on my CD player and, in my heart and my mind and my memory, but in the hearts, the minds, and the memories of pretty much everybody that lives in Cleveland, Ohio, or grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Those children of the 70s and 80s, and that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. So peace out, everybody. A special thanks to my mom for giving me the heads up about Michael Stanley, breaking the news to me gently, and peace out, everybody, my happy innovators. And remember, folks, if you want to keep what you've got to give it away. Yeah. Take it easy, everybody. Okay, happy innovators. Ready to hear some new music today? I think I'm going to try something a little bit different this time around. There's a group that I discovered about 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. A group that I found their CD, or was given their CD by somebody. I forget who. And it was just one of those things. It was like an album that only had maybe 6 songs on it, and it was a band I'd never heard of before. They were called Echo Send, and they were from, I think, Chicago maybe, and I had this CD, from them, and there's a song on there. It's called Let Me In, and it's the opening track on this CD that I was given. Maybe I was given the CD to review it or something by somebody. It was like that kind of thing. Not exactly sure, but for some reason, I really liked this song. Okay, there's actually a couple tracks on this CD. Maybe I'll share 1 or 2 of them with you, just kind of to see if you like them as well. There's 2 songs. One's called Let Me In, and one is called Home. And these 2 songs are so good. And I thought, rather than sharing something of mine on this podcast today, I figured I would give it a shot and see, what it's like to use someone else's music. Hopefully, there won't be any copyright strikes or anything like that. I don't think there will be. I'm not even sure if they're even a band anymore. But I want to share their music with you and kind of let you have the opportunity to listen. It's obviously probably something you've never heard before. And maybe I'll turn you on to something new. All right? So here we go. 2 tracks by Echo Send, a band from Chicago, I believe. The copyright here is 1999. It's their songs, not mine. A song called Let Me In, and then right after that, a song called Home. And just see if you like it. Check it out. And don't forget to check out those Michael Stanley Band links for everything that I'll leave in this video description, and in this podcast description too, probably. So until next time, folks, peace out, have fun, be safe, and enjoy the music.